Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors, presented by Atlantic Packaging. I'm your host, Cory Connors. In today's episode, I connected with James Merrill of Stoked Plastics and Opolis. We got to talk about a grand theft they were victims of and how they are transforming recycled plastics into sexy optics, including sunglasses and goggles. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Speckrite and Lorax EPI. We couldn't do this show without them. Welcome to Sustainable Packaging Podcast with Cory Connors. I'm so excited today to have Mr. James Merrill on. We met at the Coast Film and Music Festival in Laguna Beach, California. What a beautiful place. What an amazing event. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Cory. So stoked to be here, man. This is really exciting. And again, great to reconnect after the film festival for sure.
Thank you. I was really impressed with your panel, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's start with your background. You've got a really interesting background of conservation, lots of optics companies that you've either ran or been a part of. Tell us how that led to Stoked Plastics and Opolis.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, before this whole entrepreneurship journey started, the origin story is pretty fascinating for a lot of folks. I actually started as a U.S. government contractor, working for the State Department, the DoD, and the DOJ for over a decade. And what that meant is I was living and working in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, specifically looking at counter-violence extremism projects or helping to manage those. And what that is a fancy word for is almost counterterrorism. So my unit and my assignment was typically to address and identify communities and individuals that we thought were most at risk for radicalization recruitment.
Wow.
And it was...
Thank you for that work. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It was incredible to work alongside the military and just these groups in general to solve a really big problem. But it was fascinating. We were kind of tracing the value chain of violence in that we were seeing how they were recruiting and identifying people. And we started seeing this new pattern emerge within these different groups. And it was very similar no matter where we were going. This was kind of a new pattern. And they were targeting very vulnerable communities. And what that means is vulnerable communities are usually those that don't have access to jobs, livelihoods, right? There's not a lot of opportunities. And most of that laid in landfills. So landfill communities or coastlines and villages inundated by plastic pollution. So we started to see this trend of violence being connected to plastic. And so for me, as just an outdoorsman, I grew up in Maine. I grew up surfing and snowboarding and camping and just this deep appreciation for the planet, and then seeing that being compromised by plastic, and then seeing these like peaceful people choose violence over peace because there's no other opportunity for them. That's really when things started to kind of like really click and like blow my mind. I was like, okay, if there's something I can do right now to support these people from taking bribes, from taking cash to joining these groups, let's start to do that. So when we work overseas, specifically with the US government, we get conflict pay or hazard pay. And it's an extra, kind of per diem that we would get on top.
Well deserved. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And so what I was doing with a lot of that hazard pay is that I started working with local NGOs that were focused in environmental advocacy. And so we were working on campaigns around education of plastic cleanup and plastic redemption. We grew up collecting plastic bottles to earn a little bit more cash, bringing that to the redemption bottle center, getting that cash back and going to spend it on whatever we wanted to. There is value in commoditization in plastic. So that's the kind of the education that we started to kind of employ with these interactions that we were having. And so we started to create these kind of systems wherever we went. And it was kind of a remarkable thing where we are actually seeing some positive change, not only with the rates of recruitment declining, but people actually, some happiness and peace in cleaning up their environment and putting money in their pockets. And so what ended up happening is we just started developing a lot of plastic. We started collecting a lot of plastic, so much so there we had to get a warehouse in Jakarta, Indonesia to like store that plastic to resell it. And so that really, Cory, inspired me to leave what I was doing, because I thought I could address this problem in a way that was unique to me and system that I had more control over. So I ended up leaving after a decade, and my last assignment was in northern Nigeria in Kano. And I moved to Indonesia. I learned about plastic. I learned about supply chains. And so in this process, I started learning more about manufacturing, injection molding. And what we were finding is that there is a very low percentage of recycled content in recycled things,
Right.
especially when it comes to hard plastic, hard performance plastic. And when we reverse engineered this process, we were only finding 3 to 5% of recycled content in a fully recyclable thing. I'm doing air quotes, So I was like, that seems really low. That seems really low with all the technology, the know-how we have now. That seems really low. And I was a religion major. I was a government contractor. So, I didn't know much about polymers or polymers or chemistry in general. So I ended up meeting who is now my chief scientist officer, Ashish Lamba, and I brought this thesis to him. And I was like, look, if I fund this experiment, this thesis, could you and your team figure something out? And so after about two years, we figured out a way to basically rebuild the broken polymers or the genetic makeup in that plastic to increase it from 3 to 5 to about 25% and beyond in recycled things. And so we developed what we patent now called Stoked plastic, which is an extender or what we call a glue that fuses about 25% new plastic with 75% recycled plastic.
Hey, friends, we are going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors. Please be sure to support them. Are you shipping with recycled corrugated? Think outside the box with 3M tape. 3M packaging tape can help you overcome your recycled corrugated challenges with confidence, making sure your boxes are sealed securely the first time, reducing downtime, and providing consistent performance. With 3M as your partner, you can maintain productivity, achieve cost savings, and turn packaging problems into sealing success. When you use recycled corrugated shipping boxes, think 3M packaging tape. Sustainability starts long before a product hits a shelf. It starts with the spec. That's why brands choose SpecRite, the leader in intelligent specification data management and modern product lifecycle management. SpecRite turns siloed packaging and product data into connected, reliable intelligence so AI can identify waste, optimize materials, streamline supplier collaboration, and accelerate sustainable product design. If you're trying to reduce packaging complexity or meet evolving regulations, it's time for a spec-first approach. SpecRite, the intelligent foundation for every product. Discover more at specrite.com. This episode is sponsored by Lorax EPI, global leader in environmental compliance and sustainability solutions. Lorax EPI empowers businesses to reduce their environmental impact and transition towards sustainable models through innovative software and expert consultancy. Their Envy platform supports EPR reporting, environmental taxes, and voluntary commitments while providing data-driven insights to set ambitious goals and track progress. With tailored strategies and a commitment to transparency, Lorax EPI turns compliance into a competitive advantage. Learn more at loraxcompliance.com.
That's a game changer, right? That's 10 times more than what's on the current market. But it was really interesting, Cory. I was like, wunderbar. Like we figured this thing out, and we're going to change the world. But it's so much harder than that, and you guys know that. And in the outdoor industry, I thought would be a good category to introduce the plastic too, because there's an equivalent for folks to pay more attention to the environment. They have a little bit more cash to buy premium things, but it wasn't going as well as I thought. So I ended up creating Opolis Optics as essentially a skunkworks, a proof of concept for the plastic. I was like, well, if no one's going to buy our plastic for me, maybe then we can just show them and prove to them that The market wants it, the consumers want it,
It
and
works,
the
right?
people and it works exactly. So we launched Opolis Optics, which is an eyewear, fully sustainable eyewear company that's fully powered by Stoked plastic. It's like the Intel inside. Um, so we ended up making sunglasses and ski and snowboard goggles, high performance premium stuff. We ended up going to the outdoor retailer and a few other, discovery trade shows. And we got picked up by REI, LO Bean, Paragon Sports. And we're like, wow, we have something here. People care about the mission. They care about the product. And so that was something that we really couldn't ignore, Cory. And as much as I didn't want to run two startups at the same time, it kind of just happened, right? Because one is supporting the other. Opolis is marketing and supporting the technology and the mission behind Stoke Plastics, and vice versa. So it has been a very interesting journey in terms of splitting up time, resources, investment, and all that jazz to focus on two companies. So that I know that's a long-winded answer of the origin story, but kind of shows you, where we came from and where we're kind of at this point.
Well, it's a great answer, and I really appreciate your background, and didn't know that you had been in such scary places, really,
Yeah,
and doing such important work for our world.
appreciate that.
Security. I truly believe that sustainability and environmental causes are directly tied to health issues
Mhm.
and security of communities. And I
Correct.
think you've proven that with your work, saying, hey, if these people don't have opportunities, they're gonna take any opportunity that comes along, and that's oftentimes a nefarious group doing
Sure.
bad things. And that's so, and I've had the president of Kenya's Waste Pickers Association on
Okay.
this show,
Oh, wow.
and he told me about some of that same kind of thought is, well, if we don't give these people great opportunities or at least a
Yeah.
fair wage, they're
Yeah.
going to look elsewhere, and it's probably not going to be legal. And that's, just the matter of fact, really. Really interesting. I did want to talk about your panel at the Coast Film and
Sure.
Music Festival. I thought
Sure.
with our friend Lynn Talley from New Earth Project,
I'll
my coworker and great friend, she was an awesome moderator, and you all had incredible stories. I wish it was twice as long
yeah.
because I felt like we didn't get enough time to explore all these things. But
Yeah.
well, tell us about that experience in Laguna Beach.
Yeah, it was such a nice kind of reunion, I suppose, for all of us, and to include Lynn on that was incredible. But to have, Dave and Gary and Chase, from Stems and Bireo and Sungay Watch, it was a great way just to see each other and reconnect. So we did the same panel last year, Modern Alchemy last year. You know, Don and your and New Earth Packaging has had us on, and was just an incredible panel. And I talked to Don a couple months ago, before Don Meeks, before the panel, and I said, it would be really great just to reconnect, not even, on a panel, but just
Right.
informally with everybody that we had. Is there a way to do that? And Don's like, you know what, that, a light bulb went off in his head, and he's like, let's do a recap. Let's do a Modern Alchemy recap at the summit, and just see what has happened within that year since seeing each other, since the panel. And it was an incredible reminder of not only like how fast time flies, Cory, right? Like within
Yeah.
a year.
A year
But
later, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it was a really incredible reminder of, like, I think a lot of us, because we're so busy and get wrapped up or caught up with the everyday today thing, we forget all the successes, all the little wins, And I think for us, it was a great exercise to see, wow, we've definitely struggled with some things, but there's a lot of important reminders here to celebrate. And to be able to do that recap with these guys, to celebrate those little wins, to share some of that trials and tribulations that they're going through as well, it was a pretty kind of unifying thing. David from Borreo, they're a much bigger operation now than Stems and Chase and mine. but to see that they're still, going through the same type of like situations and obstacles kind of was like, okay, well, we're in good company. And it kind of is like a mirror of ourselves and our company is of like, okay, look, if David and Barreo are having the same struggles, we are too, and we can get through it together. And it was one of those things at the end of the day is that everyone that was on that panel is doing incredible things, and we're doing it together, whether we know it or not. It's a
Right.
unified front, and we just need to do it more. I think, we're so siloed because we're so, heads in the dirt, heads in the sand, and we forget to use our community and to forget our network. So it was so nice to come together at the Coast Summit to get the heads out of the sand and to kind of unify and talk through some of these big things and wins. So that was really amazing.
I think that's an important point that we need to look back and say, hey, we've done a really good job. Or, whoa, that was a big mistake, but we
Yeah,
learned from it.
sure.
And I think I hope they'll do it again next year. This would be really cool to
Yeah, that
see
would be.
the third year and then,
Yeah,
and just do it every year,
sure.
because all of you have incredible stories that I think are inspiring a lot of people.
Yeah,
Even if you don't realize that, I think they say only 90% of people look at social media and they don't interact with it.
yeah,
So even
yeah,
let's say you get 10 likes, you actually had 100,
yeah, yeah,
and that those 90% are often inspired by you. And I
mhm,
think we need to remember that as people that are working kind of in these niche communities trying
yeah,
to do good things. So keep
right.
up the great work.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, like, and that's why I think I'm appreciating podcasts more and what you're doing, Cory, with the storytelling, because there is a trend. And I think we heard Cody Townshed even say this, right? That the long form storytelling now is becoming the new vehicle for
Yeah.
engagement and communication, so the YouTube and the podcasts, right? So it's this Instagram, this 11-second engagement is no longer really serving people. So
Yeah.
that's why this is so important that these shows, your channel continues, and that people like engage in a really authentic way. And I think that's kind of a nice trend to see. I don't know if you agree, but
Totally agree. I've made thousands of TikToks and they were great and they served a purpose and
right,
they were quick points about what we're talking about, things that are sustainable packaging, things like that. But
right.
I get so much satisfaction out of people listening to a whole 20-25 minute podcast about a
Mm,
real story, about a company like yours that's
mm,
making a real positive impact. It
yeah,
means even more to me.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's more genuine that way for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your companies.
Yeah,
Where does the can you walk us through a little bit of the nuts and bolts? Like where does
sure.
the plastic come from? How does
Yeah,
it get who gathers it? You talked about
yeah,
paying people to pick it up and
yeah.
bring it in. How do they sort it? How do they clean it? Things like that.
Yeah, so when we first started, it was very localized. So we worked with very small NGOs on the ground in the Indonesia, the Philippines, where we would work with local organizations that would employ individuals that were living in the landfills, living in these coastlines, to basically pick and sort and clean a lot of the plastic bottles that we required for our raw material, which is rPET or PET, the water bottle. And so for a while that was fine because the quantities we required was so low. We were such a small company. But now that Stoked Plastics has gotten some traction and we're piloting with some very, very big brands and companies, that volume has to be very significant. So we are now partnering with third party partners. Ocean Material is an incredible partner of us, and hashtag Tide, and they're both European, but they have footprints and infrastructures all around Asia and Africa. And so what we really love about them is that their infrastructure includes the local community cleanup, right? It includes that story, that blockchain and authenticity, transparency that we
That's great.
require while we're working, so we can ensure that if hashtag Tide or Ocean Material is cleaning up around Bali, that they're employing and giving back to those people that are supporting that effort, because we always want to make sure that every single person that's connected to the supply chain is impacted in a positive way. So working with them has been incredible, because not only can they extract, employ, and engage with the communities that are directly impacted, but they can actually they have compounding capabilities. So
Right.
essentially what that means, Cory, is like we can give them our recipe for our blend, right? And so on site in country, they can create that compound right after collecting that plastic, and they can
Great.
pelletize, make the little beads. So right after that collection, extraction, cleaning, pelletization, they can then send it to our partners to wherever they're manufacturing their products. And so it's a really cool, efficient process for us, and for us as a small startup, it makes us asset light and less overhead, which is, as you know, is really important for us to
That's great.
continue to keep the lights on. But what brands really love to partner us with about too is that because of the blockchain associated with the extraction and the pelletization of our products, is that we can go to a brand and we can tell them exactly how many bottles were used to make that product, where it came from, and how it's impacting that community. So it is kind of like, it's almost like an organic food label. We can almost like give that breakdown very precisely, so people know that when they engage with Stoked Plastic, that it's actually coming exactly where it's coming from. It's supporting and it's impacting in a really beautiful way. So that's really the nuts and bolts of that. And most of our supply chain comes from Bali for the moment now in the
Oh, really?
Philippines. And we're trying to move it into Kenya. That's why it was so great to reconnect with Gary, because Sungi Watch and all the amazing things that they're doing in the river systems and the river mouths of the oceans in Bali. I actually have a call with Gary later today, which is
Oh,
ironic,
great.
way to reconnect. And then essentially for the Opolis optics thing, the eyewear company, we have our manufacturers in Vietnam, and those pellets from those cleanups are sent there. They're injection molded into our molds, and then they're created and pushed out and actually packaged by you guys. We
Great.
were able to, like, we work with JJ, who's been
That's
great. And so we've really created these beautiful curbside recycling, shipping boxes and product boxes
great.
that just really complements what we're doing, because we can't do what we're doing and then produce, the packaging and the shipping with single use plastic. It's just counter,
Right. Right.
it's just counter
That's not
everything
going to
we've
work.
done. So it's been really incredible to like, this relationship with you guys full circle, to not only have this relationship in the community, but to actually have the product complementing what we're already doing has been really a wonderful thing.
Yeah, JJ's the best. I'm so stoked to work with him and a New Earth Project and Atlantic Packaging. It's an incredible team, and I hear about these projects and I think, wow, that's really cool. I get to be on that team that's doing that stuff.
For sure.
So for people listening, I think a lot of us may be interested to learn. First of all, shout out to your marketing team. Beautiful
Mm,
stuff. What
yeah.
they're doing. How many bottles would it take to make a pair of goggles?
Yeah.
Do you
That's
know that number? Is that a
Yeah,
challenge?
so it's about 10 water bottles. But the
Wow.
10 water bottles, what it incorporates is, so we do the frames and the straps and the buckles. The lenses are the only thing that are not made out of our PET.
Sure.
But then the cases that it comes in, we can turn the rPET into a thread. And so we
Cool.
can make that the soft goods that it comes in, the micro pouches and the cases that it comes in, with the thread from water bottles as well. So
Hmm.
if you're looking at it as a complete purchase or buy, you're essentially extracting 10 water bottles to make that one thing, which
That's
is a
awesome.
pretty nice thing for people. They can actually visualize and touch and hold that. And for sunglasses, it's about 2 water bottles per pair of sunglasses, which is pretty cool.
That's really important to understand that
Yeah,
people think, oh, I have to collect thousands of these. No, you don't.
no,
And you
yeah,
can make a big impact by gathering a few.
that's right.
And like you and I live in Oregon where we have a
Yeah,
10-cent deposit. Maine has a 10
right.
cent deposit.
Yeah,
That's, 20 cents of
yeah,
material
right.
equals one pair of sunglasses.
That's
That's
right.
that's
Yeah,
incredible,
yeah.
from a recycling standpoint.
For
Well done.
sure. Yeah, that's the, for a lot of people, the climate is like a doom and gloom thing right now, and so I think a lot of people are getting so bogged down on how huge the plastic problem is, where, like, at least with this, we're providing some opportunities and optimism that people, like, just at a very small scale can really help. And even if you're not into sustainability, Cory,
Yep.
you can still buy a cool product and you're still buying into the movement, right?
Right.
Regardless if you're into it or not, you're still supporting it. So that's been
We
a kind of a wonderful thing too.
we talk about that a lot. Sustainable products need to be great first
100%.
and sustainable. You know, this
100%.
is an and then,
That's right.
because people want to buy beautiful things. They want to buy things that are going to last. They want to buy things that work well. It
Right.
must perform and be beautiful and sustainable. So, are you a part of the design process at all? You make some really awesome products.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've never been a creative, but I've always been into gear and appreciation for art, I suppose, and a little bit of fashion. So essentially, how this works is if I get an idea, I'll literally sketch something on a little napkin or something,
Yeah.
or post it, and I'll send it to my designer Carol Aguela. She's the mastermind behind everything that you guys see and everything that we put forward to our partners, whether it's a cooler or a surfboard bag or really anything. It's that design that is so important, Cory, as you know, because you need to be able to visualize these things, right? You need to be able to take a water bottle and then visualize it into something beautiful, and she's able to do that. And I think that's really where we captivate a lot of the brands that we're working with now. And end result is usually pretty beautiful. Yeah, I would like to take as much credit as possible, but I can't. I mean, you work with smarter and more talented people and put them around you, right? And it's essentially that's kind of what I've tried to do.
It reflects on you too, because
Yeah,
you're hiring the right people.
thanks,
So
Cory.
you told a really tough story during the panel about being robbed
Yeah.
right out of your truck
Hmm.
on the road.
Yeah.
You were doing a transfer or loading some trucks to ship product to one of these big orders that you got right
Yeah.
at the beginning. Tell
Yeah.
us about that story, and then tell us
Yeah.
how the fan base recovered with you.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really humbling moment for me. So we had secured a big account with REI, and there's all this excitement, that's the anticipation of that. But there's also so much that goes into that order, right? There's protocols, there's all these kind of logistics that go into that. And since we're a small company, we do a lot of the pick, packing, and shipping ourselves. But when we're talking about like 500 units that need to be labeled, sorted, and categorized in a specific way, it's a pretty big operation. And so my little bungalow here in Venice Beach, California, I had my CEO COO come over, Casey, and we started to go through that process. And so we had our truck, on the street, and it's just, street parking, and we started to just pack everything up. And it's not like we just left it out there. When everything was packed up, we just started walking it out. And I'd forgotten a label for one of the boxes. So I went inside quickly to print it out, literally just print it out on my computer. Went back out, and I look at Casey and I was like, wow, the truck looks light. So we recounted, and it turns out that there had been like a truck that had just passed by and just got into our truck and just started throwing boxes into their vehicle.
Jeez,
And so that equated to around $20,000 worth of stolen property.
terrible.
So it was, I don't know. It was one of those things where like I was devastated, but I was like, okay, we have to figure this out now, right? There's not a lot of time because, REI has a deadline for receiving goods as well. So then we had to tap into our inventory. You guys know this.
No
Um,
pressure, right? Yeah.
yeah, no pressure. So then we had to tap into our inventory that we were going to sell under direct to consumers. Not only was it a $20,000 loss, but then it ate into another probably $40,000 to $50,000 revenue stream that we were relying on. So it was a really humbling experience. Obviously, we reported it as stolen. It was grand theft, grand larceny, given the dollar amount. But it was one of those things. We reported it to detectives. We went through the system. They really weren't hopeful and helpful. And at Cory, we actually found them being sold on OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace, and we were almost trying to create our own sting because we
Yeah.
were communicating with the people that sold it. And Cory, it was so funny. They didn't even try to hide it. There's like Opolis optics for sale, but they're like in Compton, in Inglewood, in like all these places. Like, who's gonna buy, ski and snowboard goggles there? So that was a really kind of humbling, like I said, humbling experience. But it's one of those things where it's so out of our control at that point that
Right.
you just kind of need to move on. But I ended up posting it on LinkedIn, Cory. Our little outdoor network and community is so fantastic that, we did end up making a lot of sales during the holiday season to have some type of, we did recover some of that
That helps a
loss.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does help a lot. And it's just incredible to, like, when times are tough, your community or tribe comes and supports you. But yeah, I don't, so this year, Corey, we got a 3PL. We had everything delivered to them
Keep
in
it
a
inside.
warehouse. And then, yeah, so you live and learn as well. So that's kind of what happened with that for sure.
Right on. Well, we're just about out of time here, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us what's next. Any new products coming out that you want to pitch? How do we buy
Yeah,
these things? They're
yeah,
beautiful. I think we need
yeah.
to kind of lead them towards the websites.
Sure. Yeah, so for Opolis, we've had a lot of great opportunities. We're actually doing a lot of customization now for not only for our sunglasses but our goggles. We actually just secured a deal with the Yellowstone Club, that exclusive resort and membership in Yellowstone, Montana, where we did all of their customized goggles. We're doing another one with a resort in Japan, and another one in Aspen. So that's been kind of a really cool thing to see that materialize, because our MOQs for doing this type of things are so small. So they're much smaller than the bigger eyewear brands out there. And so we can turn these things around pretty well for this experience that people can have with the customization. But then we're rolling out some cool products on Stoked Plastics. We're coming out with coolers. We're coming out
Oh, wow.
with
Coolers.
surfboard bags for different companies, even knives, and we're becoming a replacement for some building materials and a renovation of a Sprinter van company. So that's going to be really exciting to roll out officially, and we'll be announcing that. But for the most part, everybody can kind of tune in and whatnot through our socials, and then our website, opolisoptics.com and stokedplastics.com. We're pretty active, and a lot of cool stuff coming out there. So people can be on the lookout there.
Thanks again, James. Really excited, and I should say stoked to see
So
you and have you on the
always fun.
show.
Yeah.
But man, I can't wait to post this, and really appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
Cool. Thanks so much, Cory, for having me. Appreciate that.